With interest rates at rock bottom levels, it's tough to find income in this market. I'm Jack Otter, editor of Barrons.com. I'm here with Stephen Thomas, who is a principal of Linden Thomas Advisors. So a lot of your clients, of course, are worried about getting income. Let's start with the classic income play, bonds. What are you doing there to try to get them a few percentage points?
Well, it's a tough market. Right now we're focusing mostly on intermediate to longer-term paper, oddly enough, that have higher coupons, that the yield to maturities meet the client's yield objective. So if you've got a client that has to get 4.5%, we're generally going out and trying to find the bonds that actually meet that yield objective.
So with Treasury bonds yielding less than 2% at this moment and so forth, where can you find a 4 or 5% bond? I guess they're older ones, huh?
The older ones. I mean, this is paper that was issued maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago, and there's not a big inventory out of it. We're not huge players in this market, but what we do is we'll go out and we spend 2 hours a day doing bond searches, trying to find the best paper.
And presumably you have to pay more than 100 cents on the dollar to get that, but it's worth it just to have that steady stream of income?
Yep. So what happens is if you find a bond, let's say, that has a coupon of 6.5% or 7%. Bond was issued 10 years ago. You've got 10 more years left to the maturity, or let's say 15 years left to the maturity. The yield to maturity might be 4.8%. You buy the bond, you've got 4.8%. Yes, you paid a premium, but you know the yield meets the client objective.
Now you're also looking at preferred stocks, which tend to have higher yields than regular stocks, common stocks.
Yeah, and this, you have to educate the clients on the volatility. Preferreds have a lot more volatility than corporate bonds or municipal bonds. But what we're trying to do there is we'll pick up a little bit extra yield, and you want to buy the preferreds based on the yield to worst call. So if you find a preferred that, again, has a 6 5/8 coupon, yield to worst call might be 5%. You buy it with the anticipation, worst case scenario, you're going to hold it to the call date, or if it doesn't get called, the yield actually goes up over time because the premium gets spread out over a longer period of time.
Now, can you explain that for people who don't understand it? Well, the call means that the company can call it, and you have to sell it at that price.
Could call it. Yeah, so par value on preferred stocks, basically what they come out at is $25 a share, typically maybe $50 in some cases, but typically $25 a share. So you might be able to pick up a preferred stock with a coupon of 7%. Now it's priced at, let's say, 26.5. You're paying a $1.50 premium, 4 more years left of the call date. That dollar premium is going to be basically taken away from you because of the call date in 4 years at 25.
So it's important that the interest rate cover that and more.
Right, and that goes back to the yield to worst call. So you want to buy a bond or preferred based on the yield to worst call based on the cash flow that clients have.
Now, for people who are confused by that, they can always consider good old dividend-paying stocks. And while as stocks have gone up, the yields have naturally gone down. There are still some stocks out there that pay pretty good yields. Many, in fact, are paying more in dividends than their bonds are paying in terms of blue-chip companies.
Right. And so a lot of industries are down, oil and gas down. Okay, utilities are probably great buys right now, and they're still yielding typically 4.5%, in some cases 5%. But again, it's an education because it's not going to stay. It's going to be volatile.
Any particular industries that you like right now, or oil and gas and
I think utilities are probably a big one as far as the dividend. Yeah.
Now, utilities have done okay for a while, but you think there's not too much loss there, or is your idea that you could see volatility, but as long as you're locking in that yield, it's a pretty safe bet?
Well, we think the market is very fairly priced right now, so there's probably a lot of premium. Well, not a lot, but there is some premium in the market. So you need to, if you're going to go into some utilities because of the yield, you just need to understand you might want to keep some dry powder, some money aside. That way, if we get a pullback, you've got the opportunity to buy in more, and actually, if you do that, your yield goes up.
In fact, you said to some of your more conservative investors, you've been holding a bit back in cash, waiting for the possibility of a pullback.
Or we'll put it in bonds. I mean, we might, if a client's got overall portfolio objective of 60-40, 60% equities, 40% bonds, what we might tell them is, listen, don't do that yet. The market's been on a 3 or 4 year rally. Why don't we start with a 50-50 allocation? You need cash flow. So let's, instead of putting all this money to work in the equity sector, let's put a part of it in the bonds, and then in a year or two, if we do get some kind of sizable pullback, you can always deploy 5% into the equity sector if you felt comfortable.
Steve, thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks.